Hello and welcome to our discussion on the new topic today under the same unit, current challenges facing the Indian economy. That is the topic on employment. In today's session, we'll learn about the basic concepts such as economic activity, worker population ratio, and also we'll learn about participation of people in India in the employment process. Let's try to uh, talk about work first. We all know we all work or want to work. Work plays an important role in our lives as individual and as members of society because we all work for earning because that's the ultimate um, aim. It's not to earn and to be able to get access to the necessities of life. If we don't earn, we don't. If we don't work, we don't earn. So employment gives you earning. At the same time, it gives you a sense of self-worthiness. You feel confident. You can also uh, feel meaningfully when you relate with others. You want to work. If you are employed, then it's different. It's not it. That's the one point. Number two is that if you work, you earn, you contribute to the earning of the nation, the national income, because national income is the income of the people. It brings about development of the country if all of us work, and all these economic activities. That's why they are the real meaning of earning a living. We all strive toward some employment. It's not that that's the ultimate aim, like I've said, because when we earn, we can get access, we can improve our living condition. If we talk about employment, you'll see that there are those activities which contribute to the GNP, the gross national product, or in rough term, we can call it national income. All these are called economic activities. So when you work, you earn a living, meaning contribute to the earning of the country. That's economic activities. But if you work for free, there is no monetary aspect into it. So that's why those are called non-economic activities. So activities that are economic in nature are those that contribute to national income that has monetary return. All those who are engaged in economic activities, they earn in whatever capacity, high, low, mental or physical work, all of them are workers. Even if they are temporarily abstain for work, they absent for work temporarily due to illness, injury, disability physically, bad weather, festivals, social, religious functions, all those are workers, but they simply can't work for today or for a week because of the certain reasons. Workers also include all those who help the main workers, work under someone else, work under the manager, the supervisor, so to say. All these are workers. So we tend to understand workers who are paid by an employer, paid by someone as workers. But the fact is that those who are self-employed, they employ themselves, they are not under anyone else, or those also are workers. So workers can be self-employed, can be under the employer. Okay, so those are workers working for economic activities. The nature of employment, if you look at India, is multifaceted. It's of different types, different layers, different dimensions. And if you look at the employment of India, some get employment all throughout the year, some only for a few months, and some may not get a fair wages for the work. They were paid below the actual potential capacity. So these are the conditions that you find employment in India. Workers sometimes they have to raise their voice, they have to conduct a strike to get fair wages. If you compare men, women, you do find that there are organizations that pay differently for men and women. So these are kind of situation you find in the employment uh, process in India. Let's look at data now. During 11-12, India had about 473 million strong workforce. We have about more than 1,000 million population, but only 473 millions are workers. Majority of our people resides in rural areas, we all know that, and therefore the proportion, the percentage of workforce residing in rural areas is more than in urban areas. So a majority of workers are residing in rural areas because India is still a rural economy. Majority of people are residing in rural areas. Workers also are there, most of them. Okay, and if you look at if you look at the percentage to the constituent of that 473, you find about three-fourths. That means 75% are rural workers or workers residing in rural areas. So majority of workers, like we've said, are in rural areas. We define three-fourth, not even half-half. So three-fourth and one-fourth, you understand, are in urban areas. And if you look about gender, you'll find about 70% of these 743 are men. So the rest, which is 30%, are women. So now we know 473 workers, three-fourth men, three-fourth rural, one-fourth urban. 73% men, 70% men, 30% women. And if you divide that in areas, rural, urban, you'll find women workers in rural areas, they account for one-third of the workforce, whereas in urban areas, they are just one-fifth. So more women are working in rural areas than in urban areas. One out of three workers in rural areas is a woman, whereas out of five workers in urban areas is a woman. Out of 5%, only one is a woman. So more women in rural areas are workers than in urban areas. But we all know that women do many kinds of work at home: cooking, fetching water, fuel work, in the farm. They work for free. They are not paid wages. That's the problem. Or in the form of grains. At times they are not paid at all. So that's why, because they work for free, we have talked about that right from the start, they are not categorized as workers. They work for free means they are not engaged in economic activities. When they are not engaged in economic activities, they are not workers because they don't contribute to the national income. That's the point of, so to say, um, a debate is not it. Why don't we include those kind of work, even though they are free, even though they are not economic activities, even though you can quantify in terms of money, not it, but you have to take into consideration their activities as well. So right now in India, we don't consider, theoretically, even from the economic activities point of view, we don't consider those work doing for free. Okay, now let's look at India and how we in India participate in that employment process. To learn about that, we have to learn about this concept of worker population ratio, meaning worker divided by population. You come to a ratio. What is that? It is an indicator. It indicates which is used for analyzing the employment situation in the country. If you divide the worker by population, women worker by population, male worker by population, urban worker by population, and so on and so forth, you come to know about the situation of employment in the country. You can analyze through this ratio. So if the ratio is higher, it means that the engagement of people is greater. If it's more, if you calculate the answer is more, that means more people are engaged in working, uh, engaged as workers. For example, if you divide women by population, if it's more, I mean more women are engaged. If it is less, then less women are engaged. You come to know about that. Okay, so if the ratio of the country is medium or low, it means that a very high proportion of its population is not involved directly in economic activity. It is low means they are not engaged in economic activity. So that is the thing that we need to learn. So remember this concept. But population is defined as the total number of people who reside in a particular locality at a particular point of time. You calculate all the number of people reside in urban areas, you find rural population. Urban areas, rural urban population. whole of India total population. It's not that they reside in a particular area in a certain period of time. This is the this is what we have just learned about the worker population. Worker by population into 100 is the workers population ratio. Okay, divide total number of workers in India by population, multiply by 100, you get worker population ratio. It indicates how much people engaged in economic activity. Let's do that for India. First, let's talk about percentage. Out of 100%, out of every 100% persons, that means 100%, about 39 are workers in rural, are workers in India. That means out of billion plus people, we have learned about that. 473 millions are workers. That 473 millions is 39%. So not of all of the people are working. 61% are not working. They may be children, they may be of old age, they are not working, or some they are not employed, but only 39 of Indians are working. The rest are not due to certain circumstances. Out of this 39, in urban areas, it's about 36. So if you calculate all the people in urban areas, only 36 out of 100 are workers, whereas 64 are not. So more are not working than workers. Whereas in rural areas, it's more, it's 40%. More people are working in rural areas than in urban areas. But overall, it's 39%. 36 urban, 40 rural, 39 all of India. 39 is that, so that's 473 million. Why there is such a difference? People in rural areas have limited resources to earn a higher income and participate more in the employment market. Many do not go to school, colleges, and other training. If they go, they discontinue, they drop out in the middle. Okay, so they join the workforce. Whereas in urban areas, that's the reason. It explains why people are working more in rural areas, because of these circumstances that I've highlighted. Whereas why in urban areas is less? Because considerable section of the people able to study, they continue study, they work um, um, at a later stage. More employment opportunities in urban areas, and they look for appropriate jobs. They just don't go for agriculture. In the urban areas, they, when they are fit, they are employed in agriculture and farm jobs. But in urban areas, there are choice. People tend to go for education first. It takes a long time, so that's maybe the reason why. It's not that they need to equip first for skills and qualification. But in rural areas, they can't stay at home. It's not that, because people, majority of them are poor, so they have to work. So more workers in rural, 40%, less in urban, 36%. Okay, this is a table that explains to us about that worker population ratio. Men, all of India, more than half are working. Same in rural and urban. More than half, more than half, more than half men are working in urban or rural whole of India. Whereas in women, we can compare more, totally 22% we can say, but more in rural than in urban, 25 to 50. Okay, more women in rural are employed than in urban. Whole of India, only one fifth, more than one fifth, a little more than one fifth, 22%. So if you round them up, you can find the whole of India, like we learned before, 39%, 39%. That means 39 out of 100 people are working in India, 40 in rural, and 35.5 in urban areas. More people are working in rural than in urban, more women in rural than urban, whereas men, so to say, almost the same. We need to look at this. So this explains here More males you'll find are found to be working more than half. But if you talk about women, 100 out of every 100 urban females, only 15 are working. That means 15%. That's in the table. In rural areas, out of 100 rural women, 25 are working, means 25% more rural than urban. Women in general, in urban or rural, in general, and urban women in particularly not working? Question mark. Why women are not working in urban but more in rural? But men are working, or rural or urban. Men are able to earn high income in rural areas because of the opportunities in industries and service sectors, and so that's why they tend to discourage female from taking up jobs. They rather make their wives stay at home to look after children, to do household chores. It's not it, but men prefer to work. In urban areas, that's the case, but in rural areas, it's different because it's agriculture. Everybody has to work, so more women also join uh, the activity. Many activities for the household engaged in by women are not recognized as productive work. That we came across because they are working for free. But this narrow definition leads to non-recognition of women's work and therefore to the underestimation of the number of women workers in the economy. It's not that because you don't consider those that are working for free, working at home, women, majority of them, you don't consider as work, as economic activities. That's why you underestimate. You find only 15%, you find only 20%, only 22% whole of India working because you don't consider that. So that is a point of debate. It's not yet why, that is the big question. But as of now, that is the case. So question is like a debate. Do you think that their number should be added to the number of women workers, those who are working at home, working for free, whether we should add with those working in economic activities, add with those 22%, so that more women we can see are working. But right now, they are not considered because they work for free. That's the point on what we discuss in terms of worker population ratio. Let me just sum up in this table that you can refer in your free time. Here, we have discussed all about this, but this is a complete list, I mean, proportion. If you talk about workers, we have learned about 473 millions are working. Not that out of this, 70% are men, 30% are women, more men than women. And if you look at the rural, you'll find more in rural, 34, less in urban, 1/4, 25%. If you talk about men, in rural areas, two-thirds are working, in two-thirds are working, and one-third are women. If in urban areas, four-fifths are men, that is 80%, whereas women only one-fifth in urban areas. So that is the point we've discussed. I just list out here. If we talk about the workers population ratio, we come to learn that it's about 39% of the people in India are workers, but out of this, men more than half, women only 22% out of the whole of India. If you further classify, subdivide this into urban and rural, you'll find 40 out of this 39, 40 in rural, 35.5 in urban. It's not that. If you further divide this into male female, you'll find out of this 54 male in whole of India, 54 in rural, 55 in urban. If you further see on the case of women, 22 of women, you'll find 25 women in rural, 15 only in urban areas. That's what we've learned. It's not it. The participation of people, men, women, residing rural, urban in India. Okay, so you have learned now. You can exercise these as learning outcomes. You can make a note on the definition of who is a worker. Remember, economic activity, worker population ratio, you define that. It is an indicator, not it? And you can also compare about women, urban and rural, and why rural women are found more working more in terms of percentage than urban women, isn't it? So that's about today. This is the first class, like mentioned, of this chapter. So we'll learn to more about employment in our future subtopics.